Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation, first and foremost, to two new patrons. So, John Kays and DL Hill. Thank you very much to both of you for joining as a Patreon. Also, massive shout outs to Julian Jeremiah, Maxi Tyken, Michael Kahn, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Sampson, Maris, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, TheFlatEarthChannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Bill, really?
Yeah, they make you feel kind of funky. There's I know they're not going to allow you to do it in the hospital or anything, but kratom is really good for that. It really helps with the pain, but without all those groggy, nasty side effects, and it's all natural. You can go to your nearest head shop and buy it anywhere. So
Kratom?
yeah, so kratom.
I'm gonna look into that. I appreciate that information. Really.
Yes, sir. It's definitely better than getting hooked on Percocet for the next 3 years.
Oh, Vicodin.
Yeah, that's what I got right now at the moment.
Oh, you got some happy pills.
Well, as long as the pain's gone, I'm all right.
Do we have to talk about medication?
No,
Not really.
the other day I was looking at the TV and they were talking about space travel again. We're only
That's sort of like
10 years away from going to Mars.
medication for anti-flat earthers.
I just got off the medication. You brought us right back, John.
No, I was trying to get him away from the medication. I was trying to give him a natural remedy. Is all I was doing.
All right,
Oh,
so about the 10-year flight to Mars. What do you think about that? Doable?
Of course.
You need
Got
medication
anyone
for
in your
that?
imagination.
It's going to be a big production, boy. Big studio.
I mean, when you look at the Helios model, right, and how the vacuum is a 17 to the minus. Oh, sorry, guys.
10 to the
Yeah,
minus.
you
I
need
think.
medication for that, definitely.
10 to the minus.
It's like being in an office here, I tell you. Got phones going.
Like,
Hey, Nathan.
fuck up the earth.
Just tell me over by the water cooler, Dan.
Nathan, quick in and out question. I guess you can sort it out whenever. Could you also add the Discord link to your re-uploads?
Could I?
That's about it.
Or do I?
I haven't noticed it. If it's there, then apologies, but Yeah,
I-
like your re-uploads, I think the Uncut and After Show.
Yeah, I don't put the link in that. Did you want me to? I don't see the point.
Yeah,
Well, I
I
mean,
think
they
it would
can.
be good, like to bring more newer people in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm also probably gonna add the server to the Discord search engine, so we can get some more new folks here.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but great. And yes, I will.
Alright, thank you. Alright, sorry for interrupting.
Fresh meat.
So about that very low pressure that would just destroy Earth's atmo.
Pressure, you say?
I mean, if you look at it in its entirely, like how small they make Earth appear, and how vast the outer space is. Like, it's just impossible.
And still pressure.
What's impossible?
Well, look at the heliocentric model and how small. I don't know if you guys ever seen those images, how they have, here is Earth. You're this small with a vast, great amount of outer space. Like, it just would. Oh man, it's wild.
Have you ever wondered who took the picture?
No, I went and looked at it and just took it all in, and how it, more and more you look at it, and then it's entirely, the more it looks bizarre.
It was a really long selfie stick.
I mean, that's a lot of pressure around. It's impossible.
No. It's constantly, listen, it's constantly being produced at ground level. And it just keeps going up and it just keeps getting produced. And that's how we're able to maintain, our gas pressure on Earth. Haven't you heard the news?
That's why we have
Heard.
the hurricane.
That's not how it's described. The closest I've seen to a heliocentric explanation for it is to explain gas as being like layers, homogeneous layers of gas, with the gas above pressing on the gas below. And they'll even provide you diagrams of it. I mean, when they've been
Yeah, but there's
presented,
got to be a top somewhere, right?
well, that was my question every time they were presented, right? What's it pressing on at the top? You can't have
Right.
the weight of the sky vacuum keeping the gas below it here. That's just an area for the gas that's claimed to be below it in a layer, which is nonsense. Gas doesn't form layers. It's going to disperse with entropy, and that's how it behaves because it's unbonded. But that's how they claim it anyway, and it is nonsense, but that is what they claim.
Well,
That
right, and they try to
confused
claim.
Hold on one
They try to
second. 1 second. On
Grab-
24/7, the guy said that to my son, and he loved that idea. That's how he figured it was. Very upsetting. You got flat earthers giving bad information.
It's funny how they try to claim gravity as the container at 98 meters per second square, a downward vector. You see, you can have gravity, you can have all this Newtonian, you can have all that, man, but it won't. We have evaporation. I don't even. How would our rain weather cycle work? Gravity, it just doesn't make. No, that's a violation right there.
Again, they have the
I would say
weight.
the medication is working.
They have the weight of the homogeneous layer above pushing down to force the steam up. Now, as I say, until you get to the top layer, what's it pressing on at the top being the problem, and having an availability of space for gas to fill would be cause for an entropy increase. Well, all of those things defy their description. So even if you try and take them one step further along, why is it the steam's going up? How would our weather systems work? Well, they say, well, it's the weight of the gas above it pressing down that forces it up. Like, but steam doesn't have any weight of any other gas above it. Gas is unbonded. It's not forming a weight. That's to qualify for solids and liquids. But when it comes to gas, you qualify it with pressure, because that's what it's doing. It's moving in every direction, and the force it exerts is the pressure it exerts, how much it presses, not how much downward vector at 9.8 meters per second squared. That's nonsense. In short, gas does not go down, go boom boom like solid bondy bouncy balls. Gas is free to expand in all directions, and you can describe how it will expand into an area, a volume, with entropy. Second law of thermodynamics describes the dispersion of gas into a volume. That's what gas does. That is gas behaviour. Not go down, go boom boom.
Yeah, my problem with that isn't that they claim there's a 10 to the negative 17 torr pressure. It's that's where it just stops expanding. That's what bothers me about that.
Yeah, it's a second law of thermodynamics violation, is what they're describing. It stands in direct violation of a law of nature. To declare that, it's nonsense. That's why the sky is not a vacuum. Space is fake. They're not travelling to Mars, because the Mars they're claiming to travel to isn't what you observe as a little orangey red light in the sky. They're claiming it's a rock in a sky vacuum. Well, they're not going to be travelling to no rock in any sky vacuum, because that's not what the sky is. We'd all be dead.
That's correct. How you doing, Tent?
Good. Just listening. I'm at the water cooler with Nathan.
It did sound like an office earlier, though, didn't it? There was phones ringing, people talking over each other, but you could still distinguish what we're saying. There was even a bit of a walla walla murmur in the background. It was ace. It was just like being in an office, even though that is literally my worst nightmare.
It was. I was going to crack a joke or two. It got that good.
Yeah, it seemed like everyone had something to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was reading the book on helium. I couldn't put it down.
Boom, boom. Yeah, the prices on those
Hey,
books
Nathan,
are going up and up.
does this
Go ahead.
does this microphone sound any better than I have in the past?
Other than you blowing down it constantly, it sounds better, yeah. That's beautiful, beautiful. Sounds wonderful.
Breathing discipline. Breathing discipline.
Just have your mic off axis. Don't have it directly in front of your mouth. Then when you blow or talk or make a P or S sound, plosive, it won't distort the capsule of the mic. So just try and have it slightly off in front of your mic. Don't have it directly in front of your mic.
There's also a Discord noise suppression feature. You can try that also.
I bet that's horrendous.
What?
Because they all are.
Noise suppression?
Yeah.
Do I sound fine?
You sound like you got a noise suppressor on. But other than that, you sound alright.
Alright.
It
Let me
depends. It
turn it
depends
off.
on the circumstances.
You probably yank.
Go on.
Well, let me
Speaking of-
try it. I think you're joking, but let's just try it off, see if there's a difference. Alright, how about now? Does it sound better now?
You turned
Or
it
does
off.
sound the same? I
Sound-
turned it off now, yeah.
I was going to say you sound.
But my mic,
You sound clearer,
I sound.
but not worth
I
the
do sound clear?
sacrifice. You know what I mean? I would have for you. I would have it on.
Say that again.
It depends on who's doing it, where they're positioned, what mic they're using, on whether or not noise suppression is worth using or not. And for certain people in certain circumstances, it's definitely worth using. But
probably a dynamic would
What about-
be ideal for not using noise compression. A condenser mic, you might want to use noise suppression.
Well, is it
Give
better
an
now? Because
example.
my mic actually has a built-in noise suppression like automatically on. I actually use like 2 noise suppression by turning the Discord on.
On my side,
Can
it's
I have
on
an
the same.
example, Nathan?
What do you mean? An example of what?
You said there would be circumstances where you would use noise suppression. What would that be? Like what setting?
Well, okay, I'll just clarify what I mean. Noise suppression makes it sound worse. Tonally and timing, that would be phase, are worse if you turn that on. Therefore, it degrades the sound. There's no two ways about that. However, if you've got a right racket in the background and you're only recording through a, I don't know, iPhone mic or something relatively inexpensive, who cares, right? You just don't want the background noise. The fact that you're tonally not quite as nice isn't really as important as if having a screaming kid in the background or something. You understand? So it depends on the circumstances. But ultimately, they always make it sound worse if you had an ideal circumstance and you had a choice of on or off, you'd definitely leave it off if you didn't have loads of noise in the background that you'd need to suppress. Make sense?
Okay, so when I'm in a construction site, it would be good for me to put that on.
But you're not in Discord. So unless you've got it built into your mic, like the swanky mic that Righteous has got.
I got you. So G Plus is different than Discord.
It's really only relevant if you're striving to make the performance of your audio as good as possible, which obviously I can't control anybody else's sound except my own. So for me, given that I've spent thousands treating this room so it sounds good, it's the last thing I'd want to do. But for somebody else who hasn't done that, and they're walking around a construction site, yeah, noise compression might be a good idea. I don't care if your voice sounds a little bit phasey. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, didn't 10th Man, didn't he upgrade his stuff? Didn't you get the right wire?
Yeah, he upgraded to a Yeti and then proceeded to never use it ever.
Wait a minute. I'm in my man cave with my iPad with a earbud because I've got family staying over because they're moving. So I got 6 people here in addition to my wife and I can't use my office with the Yeti, so I'm being polite.
Okay, I wasn't moaning. It was just a minor jokey dig.
I never noticed it. Hold on, I never noticed it, Nathan, until you brought it out. Now every time he comes off mute, I hear that.
Yeah, I didn't either. And now I hear it constantly now.
Every little flaw I hear in here. So I'm hyper fussy about it. But that's the only way to be. If you can't hear it making a horrible sound, you probably won't notice because for you it's subtle. Too subtle to notice. But for me, it's not subtle. I can hear it all.
I hear it now.
The funny thing is, when I'm on mute, I hear it when others do it. So it isn't just my line.
No, it's just you.
On mute. Do you say on mute?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when I'm not speaking and I have the silencer on, I'm hearing it when other people's you come on. I'm saying, wait a minute, why am I the only one being called out? No one can hear me when I say that.
Maybe it's that your voice is more valued than the other people that I don't criticise.
Oh, thank you, Uncle Nathan. That makes me feel better.
Oh, you're welcome. What do you mean on mute? You mean on mute, right?
It's a moot point to be on mute.
Hold on, that's what we say now. We say on mute because of Timmy Clown.
Yeah, the way Neil talks with his New York accent, you give him a pass.
No,
pass.
No, wait a second. I always say I'm on mute because Timmy said that when he went to say mute.
Look, when you're going to ask a question, ask it right.
Ask. That would sound very strange for me to say, can I ask you a question or can I not be asked?
As a Rastafarian, I find this very offensive. Mon.
Can't be arsed.
I seen a video that you released yesterday, and some baller like commented on like the housekeeping questions, but all he did was beg the question over and over again. And I pointed out, like, you ain't got a measurable radius. That question's moot. And I did it all on my wife's account, and she got pissed at me. Pissed.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. That's not reasonable. You can't comment with your wife's account.
Well, I didn't mean to. I thought it was mine. Like our Google accounts are interlinked, so it's just a click to change them. I didn't mean to do it.
I'm on my wife's right now, I think. Yeah.
It's pretty interesting how new folks, they don't quite understand the begging the question idea.
Oh.
Again,
Mic check.
Hello. Depends on the circumstances. Some people get begging the question when you explain it in a context that's not to do with Earth being assumed to be a sphere. And then as soon as you explain that assuming Earth to be a sphere in your premise is begging the question, they suddenly don't understand it anymore. You don't understand. What do you mean? What's begging the question?
Or they can say you made it up.
I didn't ask a question.
Say again, George?
That's what they say. We point out they beg the question, and they say they didn't ask the question.
That's specifically.
That's Gem Panda.
I was
How
gonna
can
say
I be begging the question?
That's specifically Gem Panda.
Correct. I was trying to imitate him, but you interrupted me, so that's over.
Ooh, get Neil.
He did that on Ladies' Night, by the way, on 24/7. He proceeded to say, how can I be begging the question if I haven't even asked the question?
Why were you in a ladies' night?
Yeah, the question being whether or not the premise that you're assuming is automatically correct. The question of whether or not, in this instance, the Earth is a sphere would be automatically assumed in a statement, well, if the Earth's a sphere, etc., etc., etc. It's a begging the question fallacy to automatically state your premise that you're trying to prove as a presupposition.
Correct.
Usually it's wrapped up in a different fallacy, though. So begging the question's bad enough, but because it's easily spotted and brainwashed into people to assume their outcome in the case of a sphere, it normally gets wrapped up in an affirming the consequent. If P, then Q, Q, therefore P. If unicorns are real, I will observe the grass change from green to brown as the seasons change. I do observe the grass change from green to brown as the seasons change. Therefore, unicorns are real. That actually is three fallacies, sorry. You've got begging the question. I'm assuming unicorns are real as a first premise, right? If unicorns are real. And then I've got a non sequitur fallacy for my Q statement. So I've got grass changing colour, absolutely nothing to do with unicorns, totally non sequitur, but wrapped up in an affirming the consequent. So I say if unicorns, then grass colour change, therefore unicorns. So it's three fallacies in one.
You know what your best analogy that you used in the past for affirming the consequent was
Go
the
on.
Santa Claus and Christmas presents. You remember that one?
Okay, yeah, if Santa Claus is real, then I'll receive Christmas presents on Christmas Day. I do receive Christmas presents on Christmas Day, therefore Santa Claus is real.
Right, I used that on my sister.
Makes
She got
sense.
it really good. She got
We
it
also
really good.
track them. We also track him every year as well.
Do we? We got him chipped, have we?
They'll show him on the news, going across the sky.
Someone slipped a Google tag into his sack, did they?
Yeah.
Is he adjusting for Coriolis?
There is no drift.
You got to get that R first before you get all that. You need a radius of 3959. I don't even have that. That's why I like that.
I bet that stings hearing it thrown back at you, John. That's a first.
You got to get it. You gotta have all that.
Giggling about
That's
it on
why
the
I like
inside.
that where I didn't even know about it. The invisible ignorance fallacy. You show them all the evidence, all the proof, they just hand wave it.
That's a hand wave dismissal.
Hello.
Hey, Arwin.
What is the radius of this measurably flat plane? What is the spherical radius of this measurably flat plane? That doesn't even make sense to say out loud.
Wait,
I've seen that
somebody
in
just
comments.
asked that last week.
I've seen that in
right?
comments, and yes, somebody did come and ask us that when we. Somebody from the chat left a $5 super chat and said this person wants to ask about or prove radius, and then they came on and immediately reversed the burden of proof and said, "What's the radius of your flat plane?" I'm like, what are you talking about? Radius for a flat plane? What? It's like, no. Well, if you're not going to be deriving sun movements into circles on the ground, then there's no point in me playing. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Father of a Stolen Child, Arwin, Neil, 10th Man, the Adam Meakin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Good morning, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, good evening, hello, wherever you may be. Any evidence? Hello, good to have you. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge that's a horizon formerly known as Earth curvature?
Are you with kidding? All this rain in the air right now over here, my sight is significantly limited, so I could mistake the horizon much easier now for a sphere edge.
Mistake it? Whoops, there's me imagining that limitation to my view is actually the edge of a sphere again, because that happens all the time, right?
Yeah. Especially in the Netherlands and England, because it rains a lot.
I got to explain angular limitation over the weekend. So it was my daughter's birthday on Sunday, and I took her to the beach. My folks live and my sister live on the south coast. So we drove down, went to the beach before we went to see them, and while we were there was all these boats that were out on the horizon, quite close, not particularly far away, nowhere near enough to say, oh, that's Earth curve. But just by making both, although I couldn't get my daughter to do it very effectively, but certainly my wife, to just lower her position, she could get an obstruction to appear at the bottom of the boat. And with, 30 seconds of explanation, I could explain that the limitation to the angle to the boat caused it to disappear from bottom up. And she understood. It was very easy to show. there and then with boats on the horizon. I mean, I also managed to explain what horizontal was to my eldest daughter, which was a concept that, you know, she hadn't covered before, and it was nice and easy to show with a great big horizontal line in front of you. But there we go. That was a useful thing to explain. The reason I bring it up now is because while we're asking for evidence of physical geometric sphere edge horizons, we don't have one. There's no necessity for us to explain limitations to our view or why the boat did disappear from bottom up when you lowered your position relative to it in the distance. There's no necessity for us to explain that because we don't make any claims that utilise the horizon for anything. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people on the flat earth side of this argument that definitely do use it as a claim that proves flat earth, asserting that it does certain things when you rise. And yes, you could easily assert those things when describing the optics of whatever lens you're looking through, be it your eye or a camera. And they're fascinating discussions to have. Optics are very interesting. However, I don't see, and perhaps Adam, if you can correct me here, I don't see how optics can be utilised to actually prove the plane unless you are using them as a tool to measure things. Just the mere fact that things disappear into the distance at a diffraction limit, if you want to call the horizon that, how is that actually proving a flat surface? Because I don't see that it is. Go ahead, Adam.
I don't think it does. It's more that it demonstrates it's not curved, isn't it? The way in which you've calculated optics and got to the criterion is generated off of a flat surface. So all the derivations are from assuming flat. So I don't think it necessarily proves it, but it would be demonstrable that it's not on a curved.
Exactly. So when it comes to people saying, well, what is the reason for this, that, and the other happening at the horizon? Don't fall victim to a burden of proof reversal fallacy if they're making a claim about it. At some point, they'll assert that the horizon's a physical geometric sphere edge that's obscuring your view of whatever it is they're trying to get you to explain and justify. And there isn't any necessity. Unless you're studying optics at college and you find it interesting, you know, you explaining why a boat is disappearing from bottom up, unless you're making a claim that that actually is a proof of a flat earth, when you explain how that happens with optics, which I don't see that it is, there is no requirement for you to actually validate why that occurs. Pay attention to the fact that they assert it's a physical obstruction at the horizon that's physical. Earth curve. Obstruction.
When it comes to
Go ahead.
sorry. When it comes to optics, I would like to ask you about this. I named it apparent rim curve. You know how like a pond, right, has a ripple effect, right? It has ripples. No, it's not the whole pond. It's just a small portion of the pond that has taken shape of that pond. Like, so if an observer is like eye level in the water or like neck deep in the middle of the water and they spin to a 360, they'll see in like a circular apparent pattern, and higher they go, more that spreads out. Are you getting where I'm getting at?
Yeah. And that's fascinating, and you're not wrong. But
Yeah,
how does
call
that,
it apparent rim
how's that
curve.
useful? Unless you're trying to argue against somebody that's reversed the burden of proof, why would it ever be the case that you'd have to justify this? I will get to the point eventually, but obviously I wanted a bit of discussion about it before I launch into my point. My question is, what's the point? How does this benefit you? Do you at the end say, and therefore the Earth is flat? Or is it merely the case, I'll make a point now, that your opponent has flipped the burden of proof and taken something that he will assert is physical obstruction, or she will assert is physical obstruction, and ask you to provide a false dichotomy explanation so that they can layer theirs on top and say it's better? But other than utilising your explanation as a reason for them having a physical obstruction, there isn't actually any need to do that. You could just say, well, I'm not making any claim about the horizon. Why would I explain it? This is your claim. You explain to me what's happening, and I'll rip that crap to shreds.
Yeah, I think it's just reverse engineering. They take optics, and we see it like in a circular pattern. They'll take that and flip it and say that's sphere edge or spherical.
That is also true. And it's noted in the label we give it, begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. So upon investigation, we have found out that they have utilised the effects we see in reality, that would be perspective, put it in Muppet vision to remove those aspects of perspective, So they can call the effect we call the horizon an edge to an Earth, blocking things with feet and inches values that don't change with distance. So we can give the why, we can give the how of the Earth curve lie. But in so doing, all we're actually doing is explaining how we've become deceived into belief that the horizon's an Earth curve edge. Again, it's not a proof of a flat Earth, merely a rebuttal to a claim that the horizon's Earth curve. Again, we're not making any claims about the horizon, so there's no reason to give them this as an explanation for why the Earth is a certain way. It's just a rebuttal to their claim that the horizon's Earth curve. So my overriding point here is to say that don't mistake a rebuttal in terms of a justification of the how they have taken an effect we see in the distance called the horizon and turned it into an Earth curve edge. That how explanation isn't your side of the argument with false dichotomy assertions from you, the flat earther, that this proves your claim that the Earth is flat, if you haven't even made a claim that involves the horizon. You may have done, in which case that's your problem.
May I chime in?
Yeah, feel free.
The way you said it is absolutely right within the argument, the way you framed it. However, if you're going to use the horizon for anything, do it the way the sextant uses it. Because according to how the sextant for celestial navigation works, you need two objects. You need the horizon and the star that you're shooting. And you get an angle. And they have to be two straight lines. And you are the vertex holding the sextant, the corner. So for the angle to be achieved, that baseline has to be 0, or if you have it, 180, which is a straight line. And then what the altitude of the sun or star is. And you know exactly how far that star is from its GP, from your GP, where you are on Earth versus where that star is directly overhead. So even though the optics of our eyes are limited to as far as the horizon looks, in order for the angle to work, it has to be flat.
Right, I agree. The way you break that down is amazing, especially the presentation you guys had a while back. I've noticed though how the circular pattern it is apparent with the sextant when it's breaking down properly.
Yeah, it's a
Like
flat Earth proof.
Yes,
yeah. The way you kill it, because they'll say, well, yeah, we do that, but we do it from the center of the Earth because the nautical almanac is already preset to measure from the center of a presupposed globe. And then you break it down and say, well, how can you do that when you're taking the observation on the presupposed surface that curves? And then this is the killer. It destroys the globe. Sunlight must come in parallel for that presupposition to even have a chance. But since sunlight comes in divergent, that whole argument is off the table. I don't care if the nautical almanac is set from the center of the Earth. It don't matter, because sunlight must come in parallel to have corresponding angles from the center of the Earth to a curved surface of the Earth where the actual reading is being taken by the sextant. So it's just a play on words, a little game, a little obfuscation of how the sextant works. Must get an angle. Now, if you were at the center of the Earth shooting the sextant, they might have a case, but no one's doing that. But that's a circle.
Right.
That's a two-dimensional circle with a Y and X axis, not the Z axis.
I have noticed too the location of the sun has a big effect because I went out to Lake Michigan and I was just sitting there for hours looking across, and I was about 200 feet up, just watching it, and I observed that the sun, depending on how hazy it is too as well, that it brings the apparent horizon a little bit closer. It blots it out. Will the sextant, will that avoid that? Will it get through that?
Say that again? I'm sorry.
Well, I've noticed because I was looking from my right to my left, the sun was like about, I'd say about 45, 50-degree angle, somewhere up in there. And I noticed that the sun over that water, over the large body of water, it brought the apparent horizon closer. It appeared like the light was blotting it out with a little bit of haze. Will the sextant be able to see through that?
It's not so much, it's the angle, it's the altitude. So if it's 45 degrees or 55 degrees above the horizon, the book say its geographical position is, say, for example, over Hawaii at the time. So that, you know, it's exactly over Hawaii, but from your angle, it's at 50 degrees, and say it gives you nautical miles of, say, 2,500 miles, let's say. So your circle of equal altitude has you somewhere on the circle, and in the middle is the GP of the sun. And so there is refraction, but it's so minute when you shoot it above 15 degrees above the horizon, and they have a little table for it. When it's directly overhead, there is no refraction. So there's no refraction if you're under it in Hawaii, if it's directly over there,
Right.
and you're somewhere on the circle 2,500 miles away, you're just getting the angle to it.
Right. Yeah, the
I don't think
subsolar
that's what he
point,
was
right?
asking,
Where-
Tenth.
All right, rephrase it.
It's about the horizon itself and its angular relationship to the eye. You know, because it's like your viewing circle shrinks and grows, but that angular relationship of the horizon is seems to stay at that same angle depending upon your altitude. That's where the idea that it's geometric comes from.
So is he saying the horizon is closer or further at times or fogged in? Is that what he's saying?
Right, but
Yes.
it seems to keep its same angular relationship to the eye depending upon your height.
Yeah, that's why you have dip correction angle if you're on a sailboat 9 feet above the water line, because you have to go to the water line for your final calculation. So if I called the navigator and asked him that question. I said, well, on a clear day, we can see the horizon is clear, but what if it's foggy? And he says, you just shoot it to where the fog meets the horizon. That's good enough. And then do your dip correction angle, which is minus 9 feet, so that you're actually taking your reading at the water surface. So it still works even if it's foggy.
Nice. I appreciate that, Ed. Appreciate that.
Good morning, people.
The
Hey, Chocolate.
Chuck.
the way in which they work is to generate a level. And I said earlier, it's not really a flat Earth proof, but if you accept the way the optics works and that midpoint rises, so the horizon rises to meet your eye level. If you accept that, and you accept that that's only going to work on a flat plane, it kind of is a flat Earth proof, because the way in which the sextant works requires perspective to work in a particular way, and the way in which you're viewing perspective to be over a flat plane for you to draw the conclusions that the point where the horizon is the point you line up to, because that will give you a flat level for you to then generate your angles from. So its whole premise is that its perspective works and rises to eye level, and the way in which you take the readings is across a plane. That's the assumptions the sextant makes to work.
There's a good point, Adam. There's two
But
other ways.
I don't think.
Come on, John.
I was just going to say, I don't think the horizon's actually rising to your eye level as much as that is your eye level. And that's just how the world is rendering itself to you.
That's correct. And that's exactly what Life is Short covered when he presented about, I don't know, a year, maybe 18 months worth of research, condensed down into about 6 hours, presented over the course of many, many hours, and then chopped up and presented by me. But that was the exact conclusion he said. In so many words, I'll have to paraphrase, but it's not that the horizon rises to eye level. The horizon is eye level.
Yeah, it's how your eyes work. That's what they do. That's how the lens works, and it's always going to create that point. Yeah, as long as there's not obstruction there, that's how the lens is working.
There's two other ways a sextant
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There's two other ways a sextant works without the horizon. One is to get an artificial horizon. So just type in artificial horizon and you'll see how they use it. It's a dish or a thing with a plate of water or molasses, get the reflection of the sun, and you can use it, practice on it on land. That's how people who own a sextant, do their practice on land with it. But the other is aviation with the bubble sextant. And so you can't see the horizon. It's not like you're on the boat. And so they use a bubble sextant, like a spirit level. So you just keep it level, flat as your baseline, and shoot the luminary, the star. So bottom line is, still got to be flat.
So is anybody in Discord?
Yeah.
Just 1 second. Is anybody in Discord unclear about how the assertion of a flat plane is proven by the sextant? Is anybody unclear about how that actually is how that pans out?
Right, I haven't really been following it. Is there a quick summary of it?
I'll take that as a
Straight
no.
line angles.
No, I don't want somebody
Right.
who's. I don't want somebody to roughly summarise it. I'd rather 10th summarised it, and then we get more questions based on his summary. Can you just summarise how does a sextant prove we're on a flat plane, please, 10th man?
All right. So basically, a sextant is a navigational tool to find the angles between two objects. The first object is always the horizon. The second object could be the sun, the moon, any number of navigational stars. There's a total of 64. Once they say don't use it 15 degrees above the horizon or below that, 0 to 15, because there's so much stuff in the air. So anything above that, your calculation is going to be a lot easier. So you say you have the sun and it's at 45 degrees in line with the horizon because it's the angle from you to the sun and the horizon. Then you go to a book called a Nautical Almanac and you find out where the sun is at that exact moment over the earth. It's called the GP, geographical position. So now you have an angle to the sun and you know the sun's directly over, like I said, for example purposes, Hawaii. So now you can draw a circle from around that GP and you're somewhere on that circle, 2,500 miles, but a guy across the way from you on the other end of the circle is also 2,500 miles away from the center of that circle where the sun is, Hawaii in this case. You just don't know where you are on that circle. So you do another sighting of another star, or you can wait 1 hour or whatever and shoot the sun again. Do another circle, go back to your original one, move that second circle back to where it crosses, and now you have 2 points where the circles cross. Now you're at one of those 2 points where the circles cross each other. That's your fix. So now you know which one it is because you know where you left, you've been tracking your direction and so forth. So you know you're not on the top one, so you must be the bottom one because of the last time you checked with the sextant. So it's pretty simple even with 2 stars. But if you want a definite, you do another one. So you have 3 circles. And then where all 3 cross, that's exactly where you're at. There's lots of videos online about circle of equal altitude and getting it fixed with a sextant. But the key is the sextant is a tool for angles. You cannot achieve an angle without 2 straight lines. You need a corner or vertex. Okay? And in the globe model, they know this. So this is why they say we take our measurements from the center of the earth where there 2 lines can meet because you're going out from there and that angle must correspond with the angle of the sextant on the surface. But the problem is on the surface of a sphere, you have a curved surface. You can't achieve an angle with your baseline being curved. So the way they work around it is say, well, we're actually taking the angle from the center, even though we observe it from the surface. Well, that's nonsense. Plus, sunlight has to come in parallel for that to work, to have a corresponding angle from the center and the surface to match. And we know sunlight is divergent, so the whole thing is done. Over.
Perfect.
All right, I got that.
Did you all follow along that time?
Yes.
You even had an extra when they try and refute it by saying, no, we take the angles from the center of a presupposed spherical Earth. They'd need the light to come in parallel for that to actually be achievable. What we actually do with the sextant, which was also detailed more in summary this time, is take a straight line to the horizon to get the angle. That's what's actually done.
I'd like
It's
to
no
add
more
on,
than
Nathan, also that to calculate the angle from the centre of the Earth, you would need R for that.
Indeed, for them to presuppose a tangent plane sat on top of a zenith that moves to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, they need the presupposition of the R value, and we've debunked it with the black swan.
The size of the R will be proportionate to the size of the angle change.
Indeed.
That's good. That's for sure. And the way you kill this thing, you know how you say chop them at the knees, Nathan? Just get it done quick. It's sunlight. You remember Eratosthenes in the well in Cyan and Alexandria, the pole and the shadow cast on it. Well, they presumed a sphere with a curved surface and a sun that's really far away casting parallel rays. So that's why the shadow is a shadow. It's not because the sunlight is coming at a funny angle. It's because the sunlight's coming in the globe model parallel and the Earth is curving. So that's what's causing the shadow. This is how they do it. You say, well, that's an easy fix. Let's just look at the sunlight with our own eyes, and you could see it's divergent. It's not parallel. There's many pictures of crepuscular rays. Okay, and then Neil deGrasse Tyson gets on one of his Star Talks, and it says, with the well and the pole in Alexandria, it could be a flat Earth too. It's not definitive proof that it's a globe. He actually says that. So what he does is he puts Cyan in the middle, and he has another pole or well, depending which way you want to use it, on the other side. So in the original drawings of Eratosthenes that we are shown all the time, it's 500 miles distance, and it's north of Cyan, Alexandria. What Neil deGrasse Tyson does, he puts another thing south of Cyan, equal distance, 500 miles, just so you have the picture in your mind, with the well at the equinox being in the middle. But what he doesn't tell you is that he's still got the sun at 93 million miles away casting parallel rays. But if you change that to how the sun actually does give us light, which is divergent, it kills it. It's over. So the trickery is the sun. Once you can prove the sun rays are not parallel, the center of the Earth, the angle from the center, all of that goes away. It's just a quick death. You don't have to prove circle of equal altitude. You don't have to do anything else. Just prove the sun's rays are not parallel, and everything they say about getting that angle from the center is over for them. And that.
But what they say in terms of what they get in terms of the angle from the center of a presupposed spherical Earth is not how you use the sextant, is it?
Repeat that?
It's not how you're using the sextant. I know you're trying to incorporate the get around to their rebuttal when you're on a debate show like this and they say, nah, we actually measure to the center of a presupposed spherical Earth. They wouldn't phrase it like that. But that's not how you use the sextant. In reality, that's not what you do, is it?
No, you use it from the surface of the Earth.
And you point it at the horizon.
Correct. And if the
Well, when you-
sun's GP is 2,000 miles further than the horizon that you see with your optics, which are limited, it's got to have a straight line from that GP of the sun to your GP where you are, your zenith position. It needs to be a right
Nathan,
angle.
are you saying you point that thing at the holographic horizon?
No, you just point it at the horizon.
Well, if I can ask
That
Adam,
apparent one.
Yeah,
That
it's
optical
apparent.
one.
That's correct. Apparent horizon's redundant. All horizons are apparent.
All horizons are apparent. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Adam, if I may,
Hold on,
so
hold on.
sun rays come in.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Just Flat Earth Solar's got an objection. I want to hear it. Go ahead, Solar.
No, not really an objection, just that we designed a tool that we obviously don't point at a physical location. We point it at an optical illusion that can vary wildly based on the day. It's peculiar.
You say very wildly. No, not at all. So within a couple of degrees, when you're looking out at the horizon and you're trying to, get the GP of the star, it's minor. It doesn't actually make that much difference. So we had that question earlier. I don't know if you were here when that question was asked, but it did get answered, so I'm not going to rehash it again for 10th Man, but he has already addressed that. Now, whatever you get in terms of horizon, you just point it at that. Now, when you have a super zoom camera and you can demarcate the difference in what is essentially 20 pixels, but those 20 pixels put the horizon in geographical, physical sphere terms miles and miles beyond a physical limitation, then it suddenly seems that you've got a wild difference in the horizon. Well, no, not so. Only a wild difference if you assume that it's a physical geometric sphere edge. Hey, Brian.
I'm going to ask something about, I think it's kind of a point that's got glossed over a little bit. When you're triangulating, a triangle has 3 flat and straight sides. Is that right?
Yes.
So if the bottom line is curved, you're not going to be able to get an accurate reading. Is that pretty much what was said?
That's correct. Do you want to expand on that, or do you want me to?
Unless it's very
go
good
ahead.
trigger
Talking
down.
about the new 2021 version with the curved line triangle. Unless we're talking
Well, it
about
wouldn't
that.
be-
Yeah, triangles with 3 straight lines.
Yeah, 180 degrees.
Yeah, so if you're triangulating your position by way of acquiring 3 geographical locations on the ground based on where you view a star and measure an angle to it, there are going to be certain requirements to do this measurement. And that would be to say that you're triangulating, and the line that you're going to take to the horizon is a flat line. And then you're taking an angle from it. And then when you've got the sextant pointed at that star, if you imagine the zenith for the star is where there's a straight line pointing down from the star to the ground below it. That's its GP. Yeah? Well, that position has been taken and can only be taken if you have a straight line to its position on the ground. Yeah? That's where it's going to be located with your triangulation, with its straight line to it. That angle between it and the ground that it's supposed to be below is a straight line to that position on the ground. It's GP. From you to it, flat. From you to there. Now, that can only be done if it's flat. If that position is curving away from you, this could not be done. That's the point. That's why it's a flat earth proof. Triangulation using a sextant
Nathan.
can only be done on a flat plane. If the Earth was a sphere, this could not be done.
Nathan, I got some slides for you, Master B, to illustrate that. The Neil deGrasse ones. You're familiar with them, so.
Well, if I can go back to 10th Man again about the talking about the sun coming in as divergent, right? The sun's rays, I've noticed it come in like a circular pattern. The apparent edge of that, could that appear spherical as an optical illusion?
I'm not understanding your question. Exactly, because when I
Well,
look
if you-
at it, my own viewpoint here for my property, it's coming down vertically divergent. It's not like something I'm losing into the horizon like the vanishing point, because it's a vertical versus horizontal where the lines meet into where I can't see it. And then it's moving at 15 degrees above me. So as the sun is setting, it's changing those angles because as the sun fades away and goes away from the plane, those angles are coming in sideways, and I'm only seeing part of it. And this is
Right.
where they like to say, oh, see, they're parallel or they're almost parallel. But I've got pictures of it still underneath going divergent. And then because the viewpoint that I'm seeing is from the furthest distance from the sun at this point, It's shooting in all directions, divergent. So once it hits the horizon, that's when they say, see, it looks parallel. I go, yeah, but look at the vertical rays underneath it over there where it hasn't gone past, where we are. And they go, oh, okay.
Okay, I'm just going to do a quick shout out. I'm sorry to cut you off in Discord. To Retro Bill. He says, next person to smash the super chat will receive countless blessings, and I give them permission to marry my lovely daughter. Or I don't know if I agree with that. You needed a bit more information. She high cast or low cast? You need to know these things. But thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate the support, Retro Bill. Also, did I shout out Godzilla's super chat, or did I miss that? Anybody? Did I shout out Godzilla's super chat? I think I did not?
No, because it follows.
I don't recall hearing it personally.
Must have done, because it's not even on the page.
Dope super chats.
Thank you very much, both of you. Anyway, who was it that gave the first super chat? Godzilla. I can't pass up on that. What's her number? What's going on with the super chats? Thank you very much, guys. Really
Shout out to
appreciate it.
Godzilla's super chats all the time because they're always pretty funny. I love Godzilla's super chats.
Okay.
Yeah, big up, man.
Okay, so I'm going to put your first slide on. The first and the second look the same to me, but we'll see if they... I know they are slightly different. Okay, go ahead.
Are you talking about the Neil deGrasse ones or the circle of equal altitude and below those?
My first one has got 3 ticks and then 2 ticks and a cross with the sun above it.
Yeah. Skip those first 3. We'll come back to those. And then go to the 3 circles of equal altitude.
Okay, so I've got your 3 stars with their 3 GPs and the right angles to them.
Yeah, okay, so this is from a navigation site. This is their own rhetoric. And here what they're showing you is pretty obvious. This is from an above down view saying, hey, there's your fix where that little red line is where all 3 circles meet. That's where you are, but that's after you shoot 3 stars and get an angle to it. And so those stars have a GP, which is the center of each circle. And the distance between that center to any part of that circle is equidistant, is the same. But you just don't know where you are when you just have one of those circles. You're somewhere on the circle, and you're the same distance no matter where you are from the GP of the star. When you do your second circle, they cross at 2 points. So now you're either at the upper or lower point where they cross. When you do your third, you have a fix. You know exactly where you are, but the square box on that right angle is saying what? It's a right angle, 90 degrees. This triangulation right there. To get an angle, you need straight lines. And this is what they're saying, how it happens on the surface. But as we go to the next slide, the circle of equal altitude, as you could see here, you need 3 straight lines to figure out that angle. Well, how do you get 3 straight lines with the bottom one being curved if you're on the surface? You can't. So you go to the next slide. When a star is at an infinite distance presupposed, the light is going to come in parallel in their globe model. So from the center of the Earth, you can have 2 lines meet, as you can see there. But no one's taking the measurement from the center. As Nathan asked me, where are they taking the measurement with the sextant? On the surface. Well, on the surface, you see a tangent line. Well, they can't have that and at the same time say it's curved. You can't say it's straight and curved at the same time, but they can on a 2-dimensional circle drawing say, well, the actual measurement is from the center of the Earth and where the 2 lines can meet and create that angle. And we just draw a low tangent line on top where we are, and we have corresponding angles because the light's coming in parallel. No. Nice trick, but it doesn't work. Next slide. Here's an image of a person shooting a sextant off the horizon, catching a luminary, and it tells him 25 degrees. And he just goes to the book, figures out where that luminary is over the Earth, and he's going to know the distance. The next slide is what they want you to think is happening. That you're actually at the center where 2 lines can meet. But what center? Eratosthenes presupposed the sphere. He presupposed sunlight from a vast distance coming in parallel. He presupposed everything. You got to prove it first. And no one looks at angles from where this image, where the guy's eyeballs are at the center of the Earth. That's quite the dip correction, when all it asks for is take it to the waterline.
I think they presuppose Eratosthenes himself.
I agree with that.
Yeah, perfect. Shout out to Al Junkie, says, Retro Bill, a sock account of Nathan to get super chats. Winky face. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to super chat myself, but thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Al Junkie. Really appreciate the support.
The circle of equal altitude is impossible on a globe Earth. Not just because you need a straight line, because not just because you need a straight line to make angles. It's that your coordinates and distances will be all wrong. It's like that guy who put a circle on top of a globe. That guy who had a problem with Tent talking about sextants there recently. The guy that did a tertiary glance at them and tried to debunk Tent. He put a circle on top of a globe, but there's a curved surface in between the 2 points of that circle. Then, so that curved surface makes up more distance. No matter what way you work it, it can't work because the distances are going to be wrong, so the coordinates are going to be wrong. It doesn't work. It's impossible.
Exactly. For this to triangulate, you need the area that you're measuring to be a circle of equal altitude. No drop. No elevation change. Equal altitude. Exemplified by the fact that you're drawing a straight line between you and the GP. The only correction you're making is the dip. Well, what's the dip? Well, your height above sea level if you're on a boat. That's it. That's the only correction. So therefore, if you were to assume that the Earth is curving away from you and you do the exact same thing, it suddenly doesn't work. It doesn't give you the correct position anymore. Yet it does work. And you're not presupposing zenith positions and presupposed lines to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth with you sticking off 90 degrees on the equator. None of that's being done. You just point it at the horizon and then take that as a straight line to the position below the star that you're measuring. That's all you have to do. And if it was curved, it wouldn't work. Correct, Brian? Spot on. And I noticed your comments in the, I can't remember his name, whatever the guy's name was. The video was about me, so obviously clickbaiting his audience because it was actually a response to 10th Man and his claims about the sextant. Nevertheless, the guy sticks a circle on top of a globe, having detailed what is required to do this measurement, i.e. circle of equal altitude, and then shows in a visual representation how he's suddenly got drop in every single direction, negating the actual purpose of this measurement with a flat bottom. He also added on the end of his video, obviously when they do it to a horizon that's got an assumption of a flat line to triangulate with. I just assume they do that to assume it's flat. You're telling me that the way the measurement's actually performed is only being performed in the way it can only be performed because we want to assume it's flat afterwards. You're like, no, that's just how it's done. Flat.
Yeah, that guy is pretty difficult to deal with because, I mean, even with the what's on screen now, if you look at that, there's I think it should be on your YouTube screen, two guys sitting at either side of a globe, and they have two things pointing down to the globe. It's like the ballers don't understand. Like if you look at an AE map or a Gleason's map, they are azimuthal equidistant. So it's equidistant from the center. But that means that the longitude lines, let's just say on one of those kind of maps, the longitude lines, they're just basically only possible because the longitude lines are the same length, whether it be curved or flat, if you know what I mean. The distance along that longitude line, if you were to do it in degrees or miles or whatever in their globe, would be exactly the same if it's curved or flat. And that if you have a curved piece, a curved part in the middle of a circle of equal altitude, then you're going to have all your coordinates are going to be wrong and your distances are going to be wrong. Just besides the fact you couldn't do it because you'd have to put a chord through a circle to even do it, right, in any way, because you couldn't use a curved surface. You still wouldn't matter what you did, your distances and your coordinates are going to be out.
That's
So
mad.
it would be you'd be completely lost.
So let me get this straight. I always knew that the azimuthal equidistant projection worked from centre out, and those are how the measurements stay accurate. So if you're making a distance measurement from any of those along any of those lines from centre out, then it'll be accurate. And you're saying that works because regardless of if that distance claimed to be curved is curved or not on the map, it remains the same. Therefore, if you're going to utilise that map in the correct way, you could actually technically triangulate with it because you can still do it on a flat surface.
Well, yeah, you can use you can definitely use the longitude distances.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, the latitude. Yeah, you can. Yeah.
But only because they remain the same, flat or curved, from your explanation that you've just given. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're the same. They're the same distances. That's why the only reason that they have 24,900 mile equator line distance, right, on their globe is because of the fact that the longitude lines are curved. So the longitude lines, if you count in degrees in a straight line from their geographic north, will give you a bigger, on a flat plane, it gives you obviously a much bigger equator and stuff like that. But the distances, like in length, the distances are the same, and the ballers don't even realize this. I'm not telling loads of them about it.
Sure. I mean, like I say, I did realise, but I didn't realise the implications. And it's only when you start having someone like 10th explain how sextants are actually operating that you suddenly realise the implications of how some of these projections, or why some of these projections are used in the way that they are used. I've just presented you, Adam, actually. So we've got the Gleasons up, which is basically the same thing. It's the azimuthal equidistant projection, but a bit more pretty.
Yeah, it would just, but the triangles do work. So this map is geographic locations based on sun. But yeah, the angles do work across and match reality. The picture we've got there was Eli in New York, seeing where the sun was setting from his location, seeing what the time was where he was, calculating the sun's GP, put it in, and the sun's GP on the map matched up with how Eli viewed it in reality. It was down this street, which was facing northwest. I think. Give me a second. There's the street, which we confirmed is along that direction, and there's the sun setting. And it does actually go left to right as it does set, which if you can put your head into the map, you can imagine as the sun continues to set, it goes there. Look, so from his position, it would be going left to right. So, and all these angles do work. Very nice.
Cool.
Nathan, I got 2 more slides for you.
Okay.
Adam, I want you to comment on this, if you would.
What's with this? What's with the GIF of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Okay, azimuthal angle, altitude
okay,
angle.
so you got the altitude angle, obviously the horizon as the baseline, and the luminary somewhere above you, the altitude that's at, whatever the sun's declination is at that time, or star. And then you got your azimuth angle, and this is a clockwise motion from the north, and it's measured in degrees. But what do you notice about both those things? Straight lines. Go to the next slide.
Okay. We lost 10th.
I can't hear him.
Yeah, 10th. Had a power cut or something.
Man down, man down.
Man down. But it's the first time I've seen this presentation, otherwise I'd just continue it on his behalf.
I think the point he's getting to is exactly the same as mine. If you see the map that I showed, the path of the sun related to a GP, whatever the time was. But for that to match reality, what you can't have is that GP being placed on a curved surface. The maths works when it's calculated on a flat surface. If you then were to have to calculate for a curved surface, then they wouldn't be in the same positions relative to each other. And the angle you measured, you wouldn't be able to actually do anything with the angle you've measured if you knew the surface underneath it isn't straight. To do anything with it, you've then, and let's come back to what I said earlier, you've then got to know R, because R is going to then determine the shape of the arc that you're then going to draw a straight line underneath to figure out actually the distance, because the GP distance is going to be different to the circumferential difference.
Right. So although it starts off as a rebuttal, like with John originally when he was trying to debunk axial rotation by saying that conservation of momentum would require R. This is a similar sort of thing, right? So the rebuttal, when they say we take a zenith and that zenith is assumed to go to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth with an R value that we've already got, well, your rebuttal to assume that you're going to calculate it based on zenith and then draw a tangent plane on top of a sphere. I'm just going to get that slide back up just to make my point using 10th man slide.
The history of it sums it up. Look, when did they get R? Yeah. Now, this is a thing that's been used for millennia. Yeah. Way before even Aristophanes would have claimed there was an R and calculated it. These things were working and have always worked and been calculated from a flat plane. That's however they want to do a wraparound post-event and try to pretend it works in this way. It doesn't, as Temp demonstrates, and historically, it's never been calculated in any other way than flat.
Right, and what I've got on screen is if you assume the spherical surface beneath you to get the zenith, what you're taking is a 90 degree in terms of the angle that you get from your zenith, presupposed spherical radius notwithstanding. The actual measurement is going to be taken along this line for your triangulation to the star. Right, it's almost got it in this is presumably a baller depiction because it doesn't let you do the triangulation because it would have the star here. But nevertheless, this is a triangulation and they're doing it on a tangent plane. So you've got a straight surface to acquire the angle, and if this was your dude in Muppet Vision taking the observation, well then he's drawing a straight line out to the GP of the star, which would be all the way out here on a flat level surface to the area of equal altitude. No drop, that's why this line is here, but none of this zenith and then assuming a 90 degree to the zenith is done. You just point it at the horizon. So you guys stood here is going to see the horizon out here in your Muppet Vision. Not that horizons present themselves in those ways. That's not how we see a horizon. But there we go. You're going to point it at the horizon, and then the point in the distance that you're pointing the sextant at is your flat line. It's your first part of your triangulation. So this point in the distance is your flat line to do the triangulation to get the GP of the star that's above that position. Can't be done on a curved surface. All three of these circles will give you circles of equal altitude with each of the GPs of the stars being out at the end of a straight line from your position. I don't know why in this instance they've got the straight line drawn out to a random position, but it doesn't matter. The entire circle is a circle of area that has no drop. An area that doesn't have any altitude change. An area of equal altitude. That's why you can get your fix with GPs with straight lines to your position when you use a sextant and draw out a line that is straight to the horizon to get the GP with the angle from your position. We've got 10th man back yet. Man down, man down.
Yeah, I'm back.
There was a shout out from his super chat. Al Junkie says, Mayday, we need an 11th man.
I do have that channel.
If you look at those circles, 10th, They all three, as Nathan's just described there, all three of them look at different size circles. So each of them will be subject to a different level of adjustment and drop, as you would say.
Oh, good point.
It's not a simple. It's become so complicated if you try to put this onto a sphere. Not only does it pervert the results and put things where they aren't, it's actually mathematically just ridiculously complicated.
Did you get that?
Indeed.
Each of the lines, if you're calculating the line with drop, not that you're measuring out to the horizon and it's a straight line for triangulation, but if you've got that presupposition in the back of your mind, each of the positions, if it was spherical, if it actually had a spherical surface beneath your feet, you'd have to calculate the varying amount of drop from your location to the GP of each of these styles, because they're all at different distances away from you. Varying amounts of drop.
You have to
point,
calculate it three-dimensionally. So whereas what you're looking here, you've got a point of intersection in the 2 dimensions where the 3 cross. Now, if you then twist that into 3 dimensions, because the circles are different, they may intersect at that point, but not in the z-axis. So one might be a mile higher than the other. Yeah, and another one might be 50 meters lower than the other. You've then got to align, like I said, in the 3rd axis, which you don't do with the way it's calculated with the sextant.
No, because you'd have to do that. You'd have to assume that you're intersecting the spherical surface and drawing a chord.
You'd have to bring all the GPs to the center of a pre-assumed globe Earth with a radius value of 3959 miles. That's what you'd have to do to start off, to do any calculations after your initial GP circle of equal altitude triangulation. You'd have to use the center of a globe. But
now, let me simplify what I'm saying, Brian. What I'm saying is, on there, we find the point where the X and Y axes intersect of the 3. That gives us an exact location. If we were going to put this onto 3D spherical stuff, then we're going to have an X, Y, and a Z point of interaction. But I think, just in my head, I can't see how the Zs could ever actually line up. Because
no, they couldn't. They couldn't. You're right. They couldn't. If you can even picture it with this, if you suddenly make your mind picture this blue circle as a spherical circle, you can then say, okay, put put land masses in the positions they'd be on a globe Earth, right? Suddenly you've got 3 different dimensionalities. Instead of this just being a flat surface for you to get your fix with a straight line drawn out to each GP, suddenly you've got to work on a different axis. It just doesn't work. I mean, it blows out. This is an excellent point, Adam.
That was my point, though. Sorry, John. That was my point. You'd have to treat the 3 GPs as their own individual zeniths that meet at the center of a globe Earth. That's where you'd have to start doing any calculations whatsoever. And then you'd have to change the size of your circle of equal altitude, because it wouldn't be the same size. Those 3 circles wouldn't be the same size as then, because you'd have to take in the distance across the curved surface. Like, you literally have to do a lot after you've done your initial triangulation with 3 circles of equal altitude, you then have to do a load of extra ridiculous calculation to try and reverse it back to your globe. And the fact that they don't do that completely debunks that there was ever any notion of an arm.
Exactly. To do this, if you were on a sphere, would become ever so cumbersome and complicated, because there'd be a load of post maths that you'd have to do after making this measurement to actually put the position back onto a spherical surface. Now, are those calculations ever performed or necessary in any way, shape or form? No. Are they inaccurate because they're not doing that? No. They just do it flat and it works. Now, if it was on a spherical surface, it would not work. You'd have problems suddenly.
Well, I think people inherently understand this too, because if you travel a good distance away from your home and someone asks you the direction of your home, nobody's ever pointed at the ground and said, I live in that direction.
I did.
A lot of people live down to earth lifestyles, though.
Right. Australians coming to visit Amsterdam say it all the time. Yeah, I'm from down under, and then they point at the ground.
Do they?
Wrong. They do.
Okay. Well, obviously that's proof then.
Yes.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, if you're not traveling over a presupposed sphere, and that's what they're doing, if you travel like 2,000 miles to the west, like I did when I went to Vegas, I pointed at the horizon towards my home. But if I was on a sphere, I would have been pointing off into space.
What I'm saying is
That's my new toast. Whenever I'm with my friends drinking or whatever, I pour out a little liquor to all my antipodal people underneath my feet, looking upside down for me. And my friends look at me like, really? I'm like, well, according to y'all, yeah, really. According to you guys, you think people are living underneath us.
With that, I am going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, however, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Arwen, I'll tell you that when we have time.
He's unleashed.
He's on fire.
Hey, Nathan, I got 2 more slides. If you want to go, I think they will show your last point you were trying to make.
Yeah, I've got the plain one up first.
I can't help it. Every time you say I got slides, I keep thinking of that movie Police Academy. The next slide.
Classic.
So here's the airplane with the bubble sextant. There's a say person on the surface of the presupposed sphere on a boat with a sextant, and then there's where they need the measurement to start from, because that's the only place, the center of the presupposed Earth, to get the 2 lines to create the angle. Just remember, the sextant kills the globe because you can't get an angle from the surface. So they have to presuppose where you're getting it from. Well, where in the circle can you get 2 straight lines to meet? There's only one place. It's a central angle. It's got to start right where the radius would be. So in a sense, this is how they're tricking everybody, saying those 3 straight yellow rays or light from the sun, light has to come in parallel so that that central angle will give you the same angle from the surface as well as the airplane with the bubble sextant. So that's how they trick everybody, saying, well, you're not really taking it from a curved surface because everything's geared from the center of the sun to the center of the Earth. Okay. How does that work? Well, sunlight has to come in parallel. Well, what if sunlight doesn't come in parallel? Well, then we're screwed.
Did you want the next slide on?
The next picture.
Yes. Got the next one up.
They're screwed. They're screwed. This is what light is. This is how it comes. It's over for them. Right here, it's over.
What if I said that sunlight isn't coming in parallel because it's not coming in?
It's on screen.
Oh, you see it. You see it, you mean?
Yeah, we can see it. It's on screen right now.
But what if it's not coming in?
Okay, don't worry about the words.
To be like that.
Okay,
Don't worry about those
let's
words.
just satisfy Arwen. It is apparent, Arwen.
Right, so it's apparently parallel. But
No.
it's not actual.
No, hold on, stop. No.
Wouldn't you have to pinpoint a source in order to establish actual parallelity? Is that a
Sorry,
word?
it is not apparently parallel.
But the sun is all parallel. It's all apparent. Everything we get to see is apparent. None of it is actual.
Yeah, we've covered that. Yeah, I'm happy to add in apparent if you so desire. However, it is apparent that it's diverging. It is definitely not apparent and parallel. That is not how it is apparent.
Right. So in its appearance, it's never parallel. It always seems to be diverging. Right. That's the idea.
Apparently.
Some cool pics and master
Apparently.
if you want to pull them up, Nathan.
You got somewhat more pictures of the sun.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, actually, no. That's the moon.
Okay.
I'm formulating this argument. Parallel sun rays won't change the circle of equal altitude because the distances will still be out because it's flat and curved. So it doesn't matter what is Darwin formulate a parallel sun rays.
I'm not trying
guys,
to
can you hear
insert
Brian? Hello. Just because it's the after show doesn't mean we don't get to hear the full point. Just try once more, Brian. Hopefully someone will let you get to the end.
I was still in the middle of making my point, Nathan, but sure.
Your point was that they are apparently parallel, and they aren't apparently parallel.
Yeah, and I was going to follow that up.
This better be good,
Because
Brian. You're going to have to hold your horses. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Darwin.
Thank you. Right, so the whole point why I brought that up is for any flat Earth conception, the sun doesn't need to be actual. It doesn't need to have a Euclidean position. It holds no intricate value to our case, whatever case it may be we're making on the flat Earth side. However, on the ball side, it does matter. They assume it's physical. And so in the observation, if it is apparently not parallel to their model, it's a problem. To us, it's of no consequence. That was my point.
Go ahead, Brian. Thank you, Arwin.
Yeah, my point was, Nathan, that it doesn't. Their parallel sun rays is only pre-assuming a curved surface, right? That they need parallel sun rays to turn the shadows into a curved shadow. Basically, that's what they need, right? You know, the shadows in the well and all that. But that doesn't change the circle of equal altitude. The circle of equal altitude is still using a flat plane. So they're just pre-assuming a globe with their parallel sun rays that don't exist, but that won't change that the coordinates and distances will be out anyway. You know what I mean? It's like they don't have anything with that. Parallel sun rays mean, even though the sun rays are anything but parallel, right? It's completely stupid. But the point is that they asserting or assuming that they're parallel doesn't change the debunk of the circle of equal altitude. It completely debunks the globe because it works.
Exactly. And that was your point earlier. You'd have to add on a load of periphery to get it to work if it was spherical. It isn't. It just works as is. There's no necessity to do anything to correct for anything that's gone wrong because of the spherical surface we haven't got.
I thought Arwen was being Baldwin, and he was about to make the argument that it's apparently divergent, but actually parallel.
No, I would never say such a fallacious statement.
I got some cool quote-unquote rays coming off the moon. If you guys are looking, that's to be. It's pretty cool. I caught it yesterday morning.
Yeah, I've been putting them up. Epic. I was going to note it. I've moved on to some of the other ones people have been posting. But yeah, the first ones I put up when you happened to mention that it was the moon, I was like, really? Because you can see the first one had like a big hot spot around it, and the other one had literally like rays coming off it from a flare in the lens, right?
Yeah. That's why I thought it was cool, because I was like, I don't see that from the moon very much. And that was at like about 6:20 in the morning. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. and that cloud happens to be the only cloud in the sky, funny enough. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. But I figure if I show people that offhand, they would think it's the sun. I would have to tell them, most people, I think I would have to tell them it's the moon. I mean, unless you just see how dark it is, but like it does kind of look like the sun at first glance. But yeah, cool.
Yeah, I've got it up now. Yeah, very cool. I've seen like a halo around the room that took up a vast amount of the sky once, with presumably a low-lying haze of clouds, and it just lit them up in this perfect giant circle, and it was enormous in my field of view. But yeah, similar sort of thing. Really, really nice to have these. I'm going to keep scrolling through. I don't know who's been posting them, but some of these are absolutely epic.
Yeah, I get a really nice sky out here in Georgia, especially in the morning. It's clear and it's beautiful.
Hey Nathan, nice to meet you, man. Thank you for all the great work.
What's your name? King what?
King Deegs.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Welcome
Can
to
I,
the show.
Can I pose an argument regarding the sun's rays?
Feel free.
Rainbows. I think rainbows prove that the sun's quote-unquote rays are divergent and not parallel, since we only observe like a single rainbow at a time, maybe a double rainbow, and that's proving that the angle of incidence, that single ray, is different from all the others. Because if the rays were parallel, then we would see millions of rainbows at a time, right? Because it's the same angle of incidence causing the rainbow. All
Yeah.
the rays are parallel. And since we only see a single or a double one, with the double one being slightly faded, because it's almost identical to the angle of incidence of the first ray.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. Anybody disagree with that?
I've seen a triple rainbow before.
That really wasn't the question, but that's lovely.
It is apparently true, but yeah, where's the rainbow? You know, where is it really? Just like where's the sun really? But when it comes to appearances, yeah, I'd agree as well.
You're
Well,
saying
a
if
rainbow
it
is
was
also
parallel, as is claimed, then you'd have loads of them, like loads of tiny ones.
Maybe I've never
Wait,
seen
the
such a
rainbow-
thing demonstrated, though.
Is a rainbow a reflection of the firmament?
I don't know.
But it is a
No.
reflection. We don't know whether
No, it's
it's
the
the reflection
prismatic
of the
splitting up of
raindroplets.
light. It's not a reflection of a dome.
Might be. How do you
Where's
know?
Eli on this? This is his favorite chip.
As far as I'm concerned, it's literally the apparent sun brightness, like what we're looking at, what we see, the holographic sun, that, but then split up and distorted, refracted, perhaps as in a prismatic effect. And that's why it looks like a big circle of multiple colors.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that
Well, if you're
either.
going to recreate it,
Derived from the sun appearance.
Sure, I wouldn't disagree with that either. That is essentially what you're doing to create that. You can recreate it fairly simplistically. So yeah, can't disagree with that either.
well,
So-
don't you need a mirror to recreate a rainbow inside?
No. Have you ever seen a prisma? It's just a piece of glass. That can create a rainbow from a simple lamp.
That's not his point.
Yes,
His point is, if you've got to do that indoors, regardless if it's a piece of glass or a lens or a mirror, whatever, doesn't matter. The point is, that's a requirement, right? To achieve that effect indoors, you've got to have that. Now, do you have it outside? No, but it's a prerequisite, right? To have it, you've got to have that. So, therefore, you can only assume that that would be a property of the outdoors when you've got the sky in view. Therefore, it's a property of the sky. Well, beyond that, that's, in my opinion, kind of stating the obvious. But does that help you in any way towards what the sky is? Obviously, given how concise I've been in terms of my summary of this, I've contemplated it before. But anybody think this actually gives you any information about what the sky is?
Well, I'm sorry,
No.
you would have to actually cross-test that by taking a building and having it being domed on the inside, and then check, like, is this going to have a special type of rainbow effect with light? You know, is it really relevant? the shape of the container in any sort of way, or is it just all about the sunlight manifestation?
Could have everything to do with how
Not the
your light,
shape,
the
it's the
light's entering your
reflection.
eye, as opposed to what you're assuming is an effect that the light is creating out there. It isn't. It's something that you're perceiving by way of the way that the lens is working and perceiving the light as it goes through the water. Well, that effect still requires this. Is reflection the right word? John, it's you who brought this up.
Well,
Yes, because
the
the prism
prerequisites of
is
it.
reflecting light.
Hold on, someone talked over
Yeah.
you. Go ahead
Sorry.
again, John.
Yeah, I think reflection would be a good enough word in that instant because the prism's reflecting light too.
Fine, and I'm happy to accept that, but I still haven't got an answer. Anybody think this gives us any indication of what the sky is?
Nah, not even a little bit.
Couldn't it just as well be a flat top? If we're going to assume there has to be a reflector up there.
No, you've not gone that too far. That's too far. Assuming there's a reflector up there, you've not ruled out that this couldn't be an atmospheric effect and nothing to do with a mirror at the top. Yeah,
correct.
I'm just
Well,
asking you a question.
The voice of reason has
It's a rainbow
spoken.
light, so
Adam,
we'd have to know what it is.
Adam, did everyone hear what Adam just said? Voice of reason finally actually pipes up.
Didn't he beg the question a bit with atmospheric?
yeah.
Look, God, everyone shut up. Please, hello. I just want Adam to make his point again so you can all hear what he said because he's correct. Go ahead, Adam.
We're probably being a little presumptive in assigning this effect. Now we've dealt with indoors and outdoors and saying there needs to be some reflection, taking a little leap to stick some kind of reflective surface at the top of the containment when we've not ruled out that this effect couldn't be a mass effect of having so much air to deal with. Maybe it could be to do with that and not necessarily the assumption that we've got to have a reflective area at the top.
Perfect. So while it's still true that when you're looking through the air, that could be what you see as the sky, right? But that doesn't mean that you're figuring out what the roof is, if we have one.
Right, so Adam means like a Fata Morgana effect, right? That's not literally a mirror image from the dome or something. That's a mirror in the air, right?
No, I'm saying you're making too big a jump. You're trying to assign a cause somewhere. You're assigning it at the top because you think that'd be the easiest thing, stick a mirror at the top. I don't think you can make that leap yet because you've not ruled out all the bits in between.
Exactly. It's non sequitur. Well, it's not non sequitur. It's an incorrect inference if you just say, well, we're going to decide that this effect is going to be because of how the roof behaves. Well, that's a step too far, is what Adam is saying.
Yeah, well, the mainstream explanation is that both the reflection and refraction are both happening inside the rain droplets. So you wouldn't need a firmament.
Yep. Yeah. And simultaneously, do you know the explanation for why the sky is blue?
It's a gas situation, isn't it? That's what they say.
Say again, Brian?
It's a gas situation. It's the wavelength of light to a gas and stuff like that. Because blue and purple, I think, are the shortest wavelengths of light.
Yeah, that's correct. That's what happens. But what's the process that takes place, and in what kind of world does it take place for the light to be traversing the atmosphere in that description, Brian? So what's the setup?
Did you just say atmosphere?
I'm hinting for Brian. Hello, I'm hinting for Brian. I know you've just picked up on it too, Chocolate. Just let Brian get there.
A globe world?
Right.
My bad.
Right, so you've got the sun coming through all of the layers, homogeneous layers of atmosphere, and that's breaking up the light, letting some through, which is what is viewed by us, the remaining stuff, right? That's how they explain how the sky is blue. Well, when you think about it, that relies on us having a heliocentric light setup with the sun and the atmosphere. When you appreciate that you have neither of their explanations for those two things, do you, Brian, still accept that that is why the sky is blue?
No, I have no idea really why the sky is blue. I couldn't prove to anyone why the sky is blue.
In the picture on screen now, taken from high altitude, the sky isn't blue. Looks like the ground is blue, if you know what I mean. Sky is black, right? So the sky's below you. Weird. Nevertheless, why is the sky blue? It's one of the first questions I asked when I came to this subject. Video number 6, I think it was. Why the hell is the sky blue then? I thought I had a good handle on this. I thought I knew.
Wasn't it supposedly caused by diffusion officially?
We've already had the explanation from Brian, but yes. Certain light frequencies are being absorbed, certain ones are let through. The remaining ones that are let through, the blue wavelength, is why we have that as the apparent colour of the sky.
We also observe the same thing with water, don't we? I mean, the sea is also blue.
Yeah.
The seas aren't blue, they're actually deep green. It's only the shallow tropical waters that seem blue, and swimming pools.
Okie dokie.
Salt makes it green.
Before we segue away from this, I like this particular question or topic because it makes the viewer or the audience member ponder some of the very basic things of their reality that they've been led to have an understanding of when they actually haven't. And something so basic, so beautiful as well. If you ever just have a look at a nice clear blue sky, it's particularly nice to look at. It is a beautiful thing to behold. Why is it blue? You don't know the answer. Now that to me is something that makes me smile. I love that. I think it's ace. I'd love to find out why. Now that I realise we're not in a heliocentric system and their description suddenly doesn't hold any merit.
Even when I was a heliocentrist, I never got it. It was always like, what? Why is it so uniformly blue? Why don't we see any other stars? Why does the moon disappear for 3 days?
Oh, that reminds me, Brian. Epic video you made. Was it today that you released that?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm eating a bit. Yeah, that was last night I released it.
While you're polishing off that mouthful. So Brian covered something that Sleeping Warrior had covered several years ago, but just got shot down, and it kind of never came to anything. And, he ended up making a bet about it or something like that, in regards to the eclipse part of your description, right? However, what you did in that video was tie several things together: the lunar eclipse, the new moon, and the solar eclipse in terms of the effect that's being described. I'll be honest, if I'm nitpicking, there was one point in it where you were like, the moon is definitely causing the solar eclipse, because there it is, and then you showed an eclipse, and you didn't quite contextualize whether you were saying in their model or that is actually what occurs. I couldn't quite make it out from your video. I don't know if that was just the way you phrased it, but other than that tiny little critique, it was a fantastic video because you're tying all three things together. And the main bit is, in their model, there should be a black disc that's had no light provided to it, but is going to occult anything that's in its way, because it's in front of it. In their model, the moon is in front of these stars that are producing light of their own volition, but the moon itself, which is occulting them, isn't seen. Therefore, there should just be a black disc traversing the sky, blocking out starlight. And it just vanishes completely. Disappears from view. There's no sign of it whatsoever. I know we recently had an argument about seeing 0.8% of a moon that couldn't be seen. And the guy was like, I'm not claiming it cannot be seen, therefore I'm not making a positive claim. Wow, chestnut. But nevertheless, you can't see it, right, Brian? It's gone.
Yeah, well, what it is that the responses I got was responses I expected, which was that the new moon happens on the globe Earth, within the globe Earth model. The new moon happens in the daytime, right? So they are stating we won't see it because it's daytime, right? to say, because the sun stops us from seeing it, right? Now, that's contradicting that we can have, because we do see it prior to it occulting, appearing. Like, I didn't really use the word appear, and I just stated what we saw, which was what appears to be the moon occulting what appears to be the sun during a solar eclipse. But we do see it before it occults the sun. We do see the moon. And what these people are forgetting, people who might be out there who might hear this and think, well, that happens during the daytime, so we don't see it. So the claim is that during the daytime is when this new moon happens in their globe or model, so we don't see it because the sun stops us from seeing that, the same as it stops us from seeing the stars, right? But the moon in their model is moving with the globe Earth in the same direction, and it only moves 12.5 or 13 degrees a day, right? That's the amount the moon does move across the sky. So no matter what way you twist or turn it, over that 2-day or whatever period, we should be seeing the moon, right, in the new moon as just a blank disk, right, a dark disk in the evening and in the morning, if they try and claim we don't see it during the day. But what about if the sun is covered by clouds, if there's a cloud in front of the sun? What then? We should see the moon then. Do you know what I mean? We should see something in the sky. There should be something there, as their claim is that they have a rock in the sky, a moon rock. But this moon rock completely disappears. There was no evidence of it whatsoever for 2 days. Even if they're trying to say it's there during the daytime, and we can't see it due to the sun, what about when there's a cloud in front of the sun? You should see something then. You don't see it. How come?
Where did it go?
What I want to know is, where is it before the solar eclipse and after?
That's what I'm saying. Where does it go?
Yeah, but see, this is the point I'm making. It's like it's very visible during a solar eclipse, but it's not visible. But
just by coincidence, it's only very. But by coincidence, it's only very visible when it's occulting the sun, not right before it, not after it. I mean, come on. Are we serious with that? It's a big rock in the sky, like you called it. It's a moon rock, right? It's a big dusty rock that's supposed to be coming in front of a giant light. So how is it that it's not detected anywhere besides when it's in front, occulting this giant light? That makes no sense.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is the thing. See, this is what they're trying to claim, is that we don't see the new moon because it happens within their model. It happens in the daytime, so we can't see the moon due to the sun. Let's say the sun's light is basically occulting it from our view. But let's just say, if you want to see it in that way. But when the sun is covered by a cloud, when the sunlight is covered by a cloud, you should be able to see the moon, because the moon has a much huger angular size than what a star has. And the moon is right there in the sky, so you should see something. And because the moon in their model moves with their globe Earth west to east, and it only covers 12.5 or 13 degrees across the sky in the day, so you should be seeing it or around new moon time. Even if you couldn't see it during the day, if it's sunny, you should be seeing it in the morning and in the evening time. But you don't see it. You don't see it at all. You don't see anything. That's the point.
When it's supposedly within reach of the atmosphere, remember?
Just to finish, what I also put into there, just because Nathan also put it in there, there is no lunar eclipse. The moon is not occulted by anything. Whatever happens with the moon, there's a coloration difference, and there's a darkening goes over it. One second, chocolate. There's a darkening goes over it, and there's a coloration difference, but you can still see the moon. The moon is not occulted by anything. So this lunar eclipse doesn't exist. There is no lunar eclipse. There's a lunar change, not a lunar eclipse. Go on, chocolate. Sorry.
Unless you could show us where we could see a red shadow. I've never seen a red shadow before. So if someone could show me that, that'd be cool.
But this is the thing, right? Their claim is that the eclipse happens because their globe Earth gets in the way of the light that's hitting the moon, right? So consequently, the globe Earth comes in between the light that's lighting from the sun that's claimed to be lighting their moon rock in their model, and the globe Earth supposedly gets in between the two of those and occults the light to the moon, right? But then when you point out, and this is the answers I got and I expected them, when you point out that the moon is not being occulted, there's just like a darkening that happens to it and it changes in color. They try and claim that's refracted leftover light from the sun that's being refracted around the globe, right? And it's because it's red in color because of the wavelength length issue, because red is the longest wavelength of light. That's why the sun goes orange and red in the evening time, because it's moving further away from us.
So they claim like a contrast. Like, the light is yellow, so the shadow is going to be a little bit purple, like that.
Yeah, they're missing the point. If the moon was being occulted, that's just making it up as they go along. The moon is not being occulted. Nothing is occulting the moon.
I agree with that.
Right. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Chocolate, I do have an example of a red shadow. Yeah, I have seen it. Well, with a transparent marble that's very dark brown, red.
And what is the moon?
Earth is transparent.
Is the Earth transparent?
Yeah. When the moon eclipsed, you can see the shining through of the molten iron core of Earth.
Oh shit! You just killed it all.
Before you round out, Nate, which will fit, can I have a pop at why the sky is blue?
Why are you reminding him to round out?
Trying to get another one in so he can't.
Hold his feet to the fire. You can't round out.
This should be good. Go on, Adam. Let's hear your explanation for why the sky is blue. I'd love to hear it.
Well, I think flat earthers have looked at it for a while, and I've seen lots of stuff about excitation of noble gases and that in the upper layers of the air. Not long ago, it was one of John's replays that kind of made me think about it. And if you go back to spectrochocoloscopy, where John's discussing about emission spectra of gases, and that picture you showed from a high altitude shows that the sky per se isn't blue. What appears to be blue is the air that's sitting at a certain density, has a hue to it. Now, if you look at nitrogen, which makes up 70% of the air, it's going to absorb some of the energy coming in and absorb it all, but it will then emit. And what it emits in is nitrogen generally gives off a blue light. So my guess would be that what we're seeing is the emission spectra created by the nitrogen after it's been excited initially by the sun as it enters into that part of the air.
So like a gas lamp effect.
Yeah, so the emission of the nitrogen will be within the blue range.
Okay, sounds like a good explanation, but with that I am going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!